So this is going to be a brief lecture on section 1.2, data classification. Guys, do remember that when you are going through this, we're going to learn a lot of terminology. So make notes of the different terminologies for quantitative, qualitative, discrete, continuous, and the level of measurement. So our first thing is qualitative data. And this is also known as data that we are giving with words. Okay, you're going to have a description to it using words. The other type of data is quantitative data, and this is going to consist of numbers. So as you are looking at these two different things, think of the words quality. How would you describe quality? Good, bad? You're using a word there. So quality is going to have words involved. So qualitative, quality, words. Quantitative, quantity, think those two words together. So quantity is a number. How many do you have of something? And so quantitative data is going to be a numerical. Okay. And these are basically your two types of data, qualitative and quantitative. Now they are very similar. Again, qualitative, description, label, words are involved. Quantitative is going to have counts and measures. I have an example here, and I'm going to ask you to classify the following data as either qualitative or quantitative. Now, with your first example here, you've got the number of cars in a parking lot. Second example is hair color. The next one is temperature on a sunny day. And the last one, register to vote, yes or no. So I find the best way to answer these questions is think about how you would actually answer it. Like what type of answer would you give? So let's start with the first one. So the number of cars, that right away is something you're going to have to count. So since it must be counted, that's a number, that's going to be quantitative. Our second one is hair color. Now, hair color is a description, okay? And you can't really measure a description. So that's going to be qualitative. And think about it. How would you answer that? Hair color can be blue, brown, blonde, red, pink, multicolor. You've got all these different hair colors that you would be able to answer that. So you used a word to answer it. The number of cars in a parking lot, you would say like 5 or 7. So that would be quantitative. But when you use a word, you're going to say qualitative. Okay, temperature. Temperature on a sunny day is measured, therefore it has to be quantitative temperature. You have a number that you answer to. And then the last one was whether or not you were registered to vote. Well, your answer was yes or no. Are you registered or are you not? So therefore, again, that is describing yes or no. Those are the only two answers. They're words, qualitative. Now, with that, we do have more definitions. Continuous data is quantitative data that can take on any value in a given interval, and they are usually measurements. Okay, normally you use some type of tool to measure it. Then you've got discrete data. Discrete data is going to be, again, quantitative, meaning, again, a numerical value, but it's going to take on a particular value, and these are normally counted. Okay, so these are our two, qualitative and quantitative. These are our two types of data we've been talking about. Now, again, I just talked about two different types of numerical data. So inside our quantitative data, we can break it down to discrete. And again, these are normally things that you can count, and continuous. And these are usually measurements. If you use a tool to measure anything, automatically think continuous. So let's give this an example. So determine whether the following data is qualitative or quantitative. If it is quantitative, please tell me, is it continuous or discrete? So we're putting together everything we just learned. So the number of pairs of shoes you own. Number 2, the type of car you drive. Number 3, where you go on vacation. Number 4, the distance it is from your home to the nearest grocery store. Number 5, the number of classes you take per school year. Number 6, the tuition in dollars for your courses. And number 7, the type of calculator you use. Now guys, take a second, pause the video, and figure out what your answers are going to be. Now that you've unpaused, let's give this a shot. So that first one was the number of pairs of shoes. Okay, that's going to be quantitative. Again, number of pairs of shoes. You had to say a number. How many shoes do you own? But you have to count them, so therefore discrete. Now the second one was the type of car you drive. What type of car do you drive? Do you have a Honda, a Toyota, a Ford, a Chevy? You're using words right there to describe it. So qualitative. Okay, the next one was where you go on vacation. Well, how would you answer that question? Where you go on vacation? Well, Hawaii, Japan, Korea, California, England, Italy. You're using words. And again, anytime you use words, we are dealing with qualitative. Number 4 was the distance from your home to the nearest grocery store. Now, first of all, distance is going to be a number. So we know it's quantitative. But how far are you from your home? Do you have to use something to measure it? So maybe like a unit of measure like miles, kilometers. That right there should give you a good hint that that's going to be quantitative continuous. So number 5 was the number of classes you take per school year. Okay, again, keyword is right there in the problem. It talks about the number of classes. So that's going to be a number, so we're in quantitative. But am I going to use something to measure the number, or am I just going to count how many classes I take? Again, in the term of counting, you're going with discrete. So we have quantitative discrete for number 5. Number 6 was tuition in dollars for your courses. So again, tuition in dollars, that's going to be a number, right? So it's quantitative. But I am talking about money. Now, the thing is we don't really measure money when we're talking about it in this sense here. So it's just the tuition in dollars for your courses. We have to count how much money we need, right? So that would be quantitative discrete. And the last one was the type of calculator you use. So the type of calculator you use in this course or any course. Again, you have to describe it using some type of word, so we're in qualitative. Okay, so now we have levels of measurement. Now with levels of measurement, this basically takes that way that we measure them a step further. So there is data at a nominal level of measurement, and this is normally qualitative data consisting of labels or names. And let's look at some examples of this. Okay, so let's make sure that we understand whether or not something is nominal or not. So our first example A is suppose all students in statistics class were asked what pizza topping is their favorite and explain why these data is basically nominal. Okay, and B is suppose instead you wish to know the number of students whose favorite pizza topping is sausage. Okay, and explain why this one's not nominal. So why is the first one nominal but the second one isn't? Well, let's think about this with the first one. The first one talks about suppose all students in statistics class were asked what was their favorite topping. So you're going to be using a word to describe it, right? It's a word to label it. So many students like pepperoni, sausage. Those are words that they're going to tell you or write down. So that's why that one is nominal. But on the second one, notice what it says is you want to know the number of students who chose sausage. Because you use the word number of students, that right away changes it from qualitative to quantitative. And nominal data is only stuff that's qualitative. Okay, so again, data that has just a label, like what type of pizza toppings, is going to be nominal. The second scenario, though, however, again, we were talking about the students who chose sausage. That is no longer qualitative. It's a quantity, so it cannot be nominal. One of the other ones we learned about is ordinal level. So data at an ordinal level of measurement is qualitative, again, words to describe, but they can be arranged in some type of meaningful order. This can be things like, think of it as words that have an order to them in some type of meaningful order that you're using to describe or label. So small, medium, large, that would be ordinal level. Think about it in terms of first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Those are places that you would make. However, I can't add first and second place and make it equal third place, right? So there's no calculations to adding it. I can't take a small and a medium and add to equal a large. So that makes no sense. That's what we mean by ordinal. So let's take a look at these two. And let's determine whether it's a nominal or ordinal. So determine whether they are nominal or ordinal. The seats on your concert ticket, such as A23 and A24. And B there is the Grammys, the genres of music in the 2013 Grammys. Okay, so hopefully you took a second, pause the video, and think about it. So seats, they're being numbered. That's got some type of order to them. You need to know like what order you're sitting in, right? So that right there is ordinal. Again, A23 and A24 are just a name. Can't really add them and subtract them. It's just a name. Whereas the second one, because we are talking about genres of music, you're using words, so it's still qualitative data. However, there's no order to naming them. Now, you might order them in a certain way because which one's your favorite versus another, but there is actually no set order that makes sense. Another level of measurement is interval level. Now, interval level of measurements are quantitative data. So again, meaning we're dealing with numbers now, but they can be arranged in a meaningful order, and the differences between the data entries are actually meaningful. So let's take a look at this. So the birth years of your classmates are collected. What level of measurement are these data? Well, let's think about that. Birth years can actually be ordered, right? It's also meaningful in the fact that we can subtract years to determine a difference in age. Now, one thing you do want to be a little careful of is, however, the year 0 AD does not mean the beginning of time. So therefore, birth years are considered to be an interval level of measurement. Another level of measurement is the ratio level. And again, these are quantitative data that can be ordered. Now, the differences between data entries are still meaningful. However, the 0 point indicates the absence of something. So let's take a look at an example. Consider the ages in whole years of US presidents when they were inaugurated. So what level of measurement is this data? So again, ages. Ages are a number, and it's a way that we measure, right? And ages can also be ordered. However, age of 0 is going to indicate the absence of life. Okay, so there is actually, ages are going to be a ratio level of measurement. So in contrast to one of our earlier example that was involving the birth years, you can be twice as old as someone else here. So there is kind of a numerical value to this. Okay. So our levels of measurement, we've been talking about our data in terms of qualitative or quantitative. Within our qualitative, our level of measuring is we've got nominal, which is just names, ordinal, which is order, interval, where 0 is kind of a placeholder, and ratio, where 0 means like the absence of something. Let's give this a shot. So putting everything we've learned all together. Classify the following data. Indicate whether it's quantitative or qualitative. Indicate whether the data is discrete, continuous, or neither. And indicate that level of measurement. So the number of robberies that occurred last year in the 40 largest American cities. Well, let's start with, what are we talking about? The number of robberies, right? Since we're dealing with the number of robberies, that's going to be a number. We're in the quantitative world. Okay, so quantitative can be discrete or continuous. Now, in the question that we see up here, I use the word neither. So I say discrete, continuous, or neither. Neither is only going to be used if it's a qualitative. Quantitative is the only ones that get the word discrete or continuous. Okay, so the number of robberies. Well, if you think about that, you're going to count the number of robberies, right? You're not going to measure it, you're going to count it. So there's our discrete. It's not a continuous, it's discrete. Now the last one is, what is our level of measurement? So we already know that our data is quantitative. We also know it's discrete. So we've narrowed it down. Since we are in the quantitative world, it's either interval or ratio. Now the level of measurement here is going to be ratio. And that is because the value 0 will actually mean the absence of that robberies. Okay. Also, in the amount of robberies, think about like Charleston, South Carolina, it was approximately 250. And the amount of robberies in Baltimore, Maryland was approximately 4,000. So therefore, there's kind of a way to be able to describe them as like a difference in a ratio there. So the ratio would be 1 to 16. And the amount of robberies in Baltimore is 16 times greater than in Charleston, South Carolina. So you can kind of have that ratio part to it.